We continue now at the top of Daf Yomi Gemara in Meseches Pesachim. This is Pesachim Daf 19b. The Gemara here is discussing a Mishnah in Edius. Rabbi Akiva says if you have a situation where you find a needle that's inside the meat of some kudshim, so the needle is able to render the meat itself tameh, but it does not render the hands of the Kohen tameh, and it also does not render the sakin, the knife that the Kohen is using tameh. And Rabbi Akiva made a statement on that, and he said, we see from here that we merit that there's no tumas yadayim in the Beis HaMikdash. And Rashi over here explains, Zechus v'tova v'revech v'takoni hilanu. This is a merit for us. It's a positive thing for us. Mehefsid kachim. It prevents us from a loss of kachim. Shalom nigzara gezeras yadayim b'mikdash. There's no decree of a derabanan that hands become tamei in the Beis HaMikdash. Litame b'davar shein metame adam. That the hands, they don't become tamei when they touch an item which would not be metame a person. We're going to say that this needle is not able to make an adam tameh. It's not at that level. Now, outside of the Beis HaMikdash, hands can become tameh with anything. And even stam yadayim can be tameh. Misham yadayim askanios, because yadayim, the hands, touch a lot of items, so usually we're strict when it comes to hands. But Rabbi Akiva is saying, we see that in the Beis HaMikdash, the hands of the Kohen that touch this needle are not tameh. So you see there's no tumas yadayim in the Beis HaMikdash. The Gemara says, V'neima she'ein tumas yadayim v'kelim b'mikdash. Rabbi Akiva should have gone further. He should have said, we also merit to see no tuman kelim, because the knife also does not become tameh. Rashi says, V'neima nami zachinu she'ein tumas kelim b'mikdash midrabanan, b'davar she'ein metami min haTorah, di'ilu b'chulin gazer rabbanan beitumah. By chulin, we do find certain derabbanans by kalim. Even in a situation where doraisa, the kalim would be tar, you find, for example, mashkin can be metame at a derabbanan level. Kiritzanan gabe yurches davar va'ochlim v'kalim shenitmu b'mashkin. Food and kalim that get tummy through mashkin, that's a din derabbanan. V'acha katani sakin tar. Here the knife is tar. What? So we should say the same thing. The knife is tar. Apparently, there's no derabbanan tuman kalim in the Beis HaMikdash. So the Gemara here first answers, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Rav Yehuda says in the name of Rav, Yitema Rav Yossi Rav Chanina. Some say it's Rav Yossi Rav Chanina says as follows, Yadayim Kodem Gezeras Kalim Nishnu. That the Derabanan decree on Yadayim actually came before Kalim. So this particular Mishnah took place when there was no Derabanan on Kalim anyway, so there's no point of saying we merit not to have this Derabanan of Kalim. That Derabanan was never made yet by Kalim. Gemara does not like this answer. Amar Rava says, V'tarvayu bo bayom gazer. It's not true. The dinim derabanan on yadayim and the dinim derabanan on kalim were actually on the same day. That's not because we learned in the Mishnah, hasefer v'hayadayim v'hatzvul yom v'ochlin v'hakalim shenitmu b'mashkin. All of these things were listed in the same day. That all these different derabanan tumas were all in the same day. You see very clearly, yadayim is in there, kalim is in there. They're all together. So the Gemara instead says another answer, a pretty simple answer. Alama Rava, rather Rava says, Hanach l'tumah sakin. Forget about tumah on the knife. Te'afilu b'chulin nami lo metame. Even if this wasn't kachim in this scenario, the knife would not be tameh, because hai sakin denaga b'mai. What did this knife touch? Ilema denaga b'basar. You're going to say, okay, it touched the meat, so ha'einocha metame kli. It doesn't matter. Food is not metame kalim. V'ela denaga b'machat. So maybe it touched the needle itself. Va'ein kli metame kli. A keli is also not metame in another vessel. One vessel is not metame another vessel. So therefore, it's kind of obvious, so to speak. There's no issue anyway in the sakin in terms of becoming tameh. There's not even a derabanan issue. If it would have touched some kind of liquid, yeah, so there generally is a derabanan when a vessel touches a liquid, there's a tumah derabanan. You could say, if it touched the liquid and there was no tumah in the Beis HaMikdash, we see there's no tumas kalim in the Beis HaMikdash. But in this case, it didn't touch anything, even on a derabanan level, that would have made it tameh. So there's nothing to talk about on that level. Yadayim, on the other hand, really should have been tameh even with a koldehu, but they're not. So you see there's no tumas yadayim in the Beis HaMikdash. Now the Gemara gets into what exactly is going on in this Mishnah. How was this machat tameh in the first place? Hi machat maya vidite. What happened with this needle that we're considering it tameh, and we're saying it makes the meat tameh, but it doesn't make the hands or the knife tameh? What's going on with this machat? Inema suffik machat. So if you're going to say that it's simply a suffik, we just don't know where it came from, and we have to be machmir and assume that maybe this needle was tameh. So if you're going to say that is the situation, va'itmar, but it was taught, Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina say as follows. Chadamar, one of them says, Lo gazru al safek harokin shabirushalayim. Even though in general, if you have a suffix, you find some spittle, you have to say maybe it came from a zav, maybe it's tamei. In Yerushalayim, they made no decree on a suffix situation of rok. V'chad Amar, and one of them says, Lo gazru al safek hakelim shabirushalayim. They did not make a gezerah when it comes to safek kelim in Yerushalayim. You don't know where a certain kli was, where it came from. In Yerushalayim, we're lenient. We're not going to be we're not going to be strict in that situation and say that it's tamei. And so the same thing over here. By the machat, it's a keli, and so apparently lo gazru on safek kelim in Yerushalayim. There shouldn't be any problem. So Amar Rav Yudah Marav, Rav Yudah says in the name of Rav, the case is as follows: Kigon sha'avda lo machat tamei meis. This was a needle that actually belonged to a person who was a tamei meis. Now a tamei meis is an avatoma, and the machat, if it's metal, we've said before that the metal takes on the same property as the tamei meis, so it's also going to be an avatoma. V'ikira b'basar, and he recognized that was the needle that he lost, so we know that this was a tamei needle. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yavin says, Kagon shaisa para chasuma. There was a cow that was muzzled, and so we know it did not eat anything within Yerushalayim. Uva michutz Yerushalayim, it came from outside of Yerushalayim, so clearly this needle got into the cow from outside of Yerushalayim, and in that situation, it's a suffix of kalim outside of Yerushalayim, and we are going to be strict in that situation. And the Gemara now continues that the two dots, just analyzing the statements from the Amoraim we had before, Gufa, the matter itself, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina, a machlokas, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina, Charamar lo gazru al safek harokin b'Yerushalayim. One of them says they did not make any gezeras on a suffix of spittle that you find in Yerushalayim. V'charamar lo gazru al safek hakelim b'Yerushalayim. One of them said they did not make any decree on a suffix of vessels that you find in Yerushalayim. Gemara now says, Rokin Tanina and Kalim Tanina. The truth is that the case of spittle we learned in a Mishnah, and the case of Kalim we also learned in a Mishnah. Rokin Tanina as follows, we learned in a Mishnah by spittle as follows. Tetnan we learned in a Mishnah. Kol harokin hanimtsoin b'Yerushalayim tahorin. All spit that you find in Yerushalayim is pure. Chutz mishel shuka elyon. Except for the upper marketplace, and the upper marketplace, so that was an area where people who were tamei hung out. Otherwise, apparently, it seems to be that it was pure. That's exactly what this Amora said. So why is the Amora saying something that we already find in the Mishnah? Gemara says, Lo tzricha, no, his statement is needed. Af agav dis chazek zav, even in a situation where there's a presumption that there was a zav present in that area, even in that situation in Yerushalayim, we're going to be lenient. That's what the Amora is coming to add from what's not in the Mishnah. Kalim Tanina, the Gemara says, Kalim also, isn't it straight in the Mishnah? The Tanan we learned in the Mishnah. Any vessels that are found in Yerushalayim, derech yerida lebeis hatvila, if it's on the way down to the area where the people who are tamei immerse, tamei, and you can assume those are tamei because the guy who's going to immerse was obviously tamei. He hasn't yet immersed. They used to have, it was like a one-way road. So everyone went down one way to immerse, and then they came up on another road. So you always knew on the way down they were tamei, on the way up they were going to be pure, they were tar. So if you find it on the way down, tamei. So the implication is hadi alma tahorin. Anywhere else you find kalim, you're going to assume they're pure. Only on the way down to the Beis HaTavila it's tamei. Otherwise, everyone in Yerushalayim is tar. So that's exactly what the Amora said. Gemara says, no, that's not a proof. According to your logic, look at the end of that very same Mishnah. Derech aliyah tahorin. It says on the way up from the area where they immersed, it's pure. So you can make the opposite inference. Hadi alma tamei, and that implies everywhere else in Yerushalayim it's tamei. So the truth of the matter is the inferences that you can draw from this Mishnah are contradictory. So the Gemara instead says, Ela Reisha Dafka v'Seifa Lav Dafka. Rather, take the Reisha of this Mishnah Dafka, that's where you really draw the implication, meaning Derech Yerida is Tameh, everywhere else really is Tahar. And v'Seifa Lav Dafka. But the end, you should not take that take that so literally. What that just means is on the way up, it's going to be, on the way up from the area where they're immersed, it's going to be pure. Otherwise, ulafuke gazaisa, in alleyway areas, it's going to be tamei. But other areas, really in Yerushalayim, are tar. Just these certain alleyways are going to be tamei. Rashi over here explains. From this Mishnah, you can draw no inferences whatsoever. One inference goes one way, the other way. So what the Amoraim are teaching us is as follows. Diamri lo gazru dereisha dafka. Take the first part of the Mishnah seriously. Make the inference from there. The katani b'derech yeridahu demitamin. Only on the way down to the area they immersed is a tamei. Ha dechala ir tar. The rest of the city is tar, and that's the chiddush of the Amoraim. V'seiva the katani derech aliyah tar. Now what do we do at the end where it says on the way up from the area where they immersed it's tar? Lo teiduk mina hadachol yer tamein. Don't make an inference that the rest of the city is tamei, because that's not true. There were these little alleyways. They were near the Yerida and Aliyah area. Those you don't know. You don't know if they're going down through there or up through there. In those areas, in those specific alleyways, we actually do say tamei. Because originally they were tamei. Safek naflu b'Yerida, Safek b'Aliyah. Now we have a Safek, but we know originally they were tamei. Since we know originally they were with people who were tamei, they were tamei. We just don't know if they were put into the mikveh and purified or not, so we don't assume that they were tar. Aval shar kelim safek nitmu, safek lo nitmu, lo gazra alein misafek. But in all other situations, except for this particular alleyways, in general in Yerushalayim, we are going to say that it is tahor. And now the Gemara continues and returns to this Mishnah that was discussing the needle in the meat of the animal that's a carbon, that's kachim. Now Rav had explained the Mishnah that it's talking about a situation where someone who's tamei meis, he loses a machat v'hikira bebasar, and he recognizes that machat in the meat. So basically that machat is going to be an avatoma. So now the Gemara asks an obvious question. If the master already said that metal objects take on the same property as the corpse or the tamei meis, so in this case this needle is an avatoma, Adam v'kelim namili tamei. The entire kohen should become tamei, because an adam, a person, can become tamei from an avatoma, and the kelim as well. The kelim, an avatoma, if this machat really is an avatoma, it should be metamei kelim. So why do we say that we're only talking about the adayim, and we're saying the adayim are pure, and we're saying that the knife is going to be tar? Why is that true? This should be metamei adam v'kelim. So the Gemara says, Amar Rav Ashi answers, Zos Omeres, this proves Azara Rishus Harabim, that the Azara of the Beis HaMikdash is considered a Rishus Harabim. V'havale Safek Tumah Rishus Harabim. The case really is a situation of Safek Tumah and Rishus Harabim. V'chal Safek Tumah Rishus Harabim Sveiko Tar. And if you have any situation of Safek Tumah and Rishus Harabim, it's going to be Tahar. And Rashi over here says, Adam v'kelim nami litame dechol av hatumah mitame Adam v'kelim. And avatum is mitame Adam v'kelim. Bein kli es kli, bein Adam es Adam, bein Adam kli, ukli Adam. It doesn't matter if it's a man to kli, kli to kli, kli to man. Makes no difference. All of those situations from an avatumah are tamei, and the Gemara answers, Azar rishus harabim hi latumah v'Adam v'sakin safik nagu b'machat zeh safik lo nagu. It's really a doubt. We don't know if this kohen or this knife touched the machat. So since we don't know, v'havala safik tumah b'rishus harabim d'sveiko tar. It becomes a safik in rishus harabim, and it's tar in such a situation. So the Gemara now says, okay, ha b'rishus hayachid sveiko tameh. The implication here is that if this would have happened in rishus hayachid, we would actually say tameh. Sveiko tamehu. It's actually going to be tameh. Mechti, let us see. Hai macha davar shein bo das li shoelhu. This needle, and now Rashi says it doesn't really mean the needle, it really means the knife. In a situation of the knife touching the needle, the knife has no das. The sakin has no das. V'chol davar shein bo das li shoel. And when you're dealing with something without das, bein rishus harabim, bein rishus hayachid, whether rishus harabim, whether rishus hayachid, sveiko tar. That should be tar anyway. So what are you saying, that in rishus harabim it's pure, but in rishus hayachid it would not be? That's not true. If it's a davar shein bo das li shoel, it should be pure in any sense. Rashi over here says, "Uparchinun harishus hayachid have sveiko tameh, hadavar shein bo das li shoel hasakin." The sakin is a davar she'ein bo das l'shal. It doesn't have das to ask a shaila, and in such a situation, we say that it's going to be tar. And to that, the Gemara answers, mishum da have a safek tumah haba b'dei adam. Even though the knife itself cannot ask a shaila, it has no das, but the knife was being held by a person. V'yomer Rabbi Yochanan said, safek tumah haba b'dei adam. If you have a situation of a doubt of tumah through a person, and Rashi over here explains, haba b'dei adam, adam haya asuk ba. A person was handling it. If this sakin did touch the needle, it was because of a person. Therefore, that's why we said if the azara was a rishus hayachid, sveiko tameh, the suffix would indeed be tameh, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Chaf Amud Aleph.